What is going on, boxing world? It is fight week. Big fight this Saturday coming up. You got Earl Spence, IBF champ, versus Mikey Garcia, 4-division world title. World titleist, going for that big number 5. Dare to be great move from Mikey. It's a good fight, man. I know it feels like every time I do a video, I'm going to the gym, but hey, that's just how my schedule is at the moment. So, you know, I'll give my official prediction, breakdown of the big fight. You know, early 2018, most people thought, Mikey's just, clout chasing or whatever. Because I think around the time he initially called out Earl Spence was when Earl had his performance over Lamont Peterson, which more one-sided than I thought it would be. I thought it would be competitive. I thought Earl would stop Lamont, but I didn't think it'd be in that fashion. I didn't think it would be a 7-round beatdown. So, kudos to Earl for that performance. But, he called him out the first time round then. Then he called him out again after he fought Lepinets, which was like a month later. Probably Mikey's most competitive fight. I would say Lepinets and Salido have been his 2 most competitive scraps. I think those were his 2 most competitive fights. Only issue with that is that Lepinets was an unestablished champion. He's still a solid fighter. I think he's fighting Lamont Peterson soon. So actually, that's not a bad fight, Lamont versus Lepinets. But he was still an unestablished champion, and Mikey was fighting at 140, right? Whoop Broner's ass. That was pretty one-sided. Robert Easter, Mikey beat, was competitive. I thought Mikey definitely won the fight though, handily, but I don't think it was like how it was when he fought Broner, or it wasn't that one-sided. I thought Robert had some nice moments, especially the first couple of rounds. I thought Robert Easter was boxing pretty well, but he never took full advantage of his height and reach. And I think that's just mainly because he was, probably just foreign to being that kind of style, being more of a clinical boxer. So even though he didn't do bad with it, he couldn't take all the advantages of being a tall fighter. And that's kind of what happens when you're trying to fight a new style right before a big fight. That's why I'm not the biggest fan of switching or adding trainers right before a big fight. Just because you're shaking up a lot of your camp and not, kind of focusing on your skills and game plan, which is really where you need to be for a mega fight. So that's kind of why Dare to be Great moves typically don't work out as much, especially now that fighters are a lot bigger. Gamboa moved up to fight Crawford. He was competitive early, but then after the, midway of the 4th round, you saw that skill and size matters. So, Gamboa was a pound-for-pound fighter back then. People forget about that. But ultimately, Crawford, who was equal in skill and bigger, you saw what happened. In fact, I think actually Spence versus Mikey is probably going to end around the same round. But I'll get to more of that in a little bit. Who else dared to be great recently? Kell Brook versus Triple G. Again, he was competitive early, but size matters. Khan versus Canelo, even though the judges were on some BS. Khan was winning the first 4 rounds before he got knocked out. It's tough, man, because you gotta not only show that because when you dare to be great, you're fighting other good fighters. It's not like you're just fighting an average dude. You're fighting top 3 opponent for that weight class, and the other top 7 guys can't beat him or can barely take his punch or whatever the case is. So when when Mikey's doing this move, he's fighting the top. He hasn't even fought the top guys at 140. Regis Prograis and Josh Taylor and Kirill Relic's pretty good. Baranchek, I know he's kind of basic, but he's a big puncher. Mario Barrios, he's a promising prospect. 140 got some solid fighters, and he hasn't even beaten them. I know Lepinets is, he's cool, good fundamentals, good all-around boxer, but he himself didn't look great in his last fight before fighting Mikey. Some people would argue he lost to the Japanese fighter. Same thing with Easter. Easter, yes, he was the longest reigning champion at the time he fought Mikey, but you got to remember when he fought Richard Comey, that was a fight of the year fight. Very close fight. Easily could have went the other way. I think Robert was the right winner. That was a good scrap, actually. Easter versus Comey. And Comey's now a champion. He's tough. He has power. A little bit awkward. And then, Robert Easter, he had trouble with Denis Shafikov, a tough Russian fighter. I thought Robert was the right winner, but he didn't show a lot of separation in beating him. It was a close victory. And then the Fortuna fight, a lot of people thought Easter lost that one. So, you could argue Mikey's last 2 wins, maybe his 2 best wins were against champions who didn't look great in their last fights. That's, you could say that's nitpicking, but that's really the truth, And I like Lipinets, I like Easter Jr., but both of them in their last fight before fighting Mikey, they did not look great. They arguably lost. And from Earl Spence's side, fought Kell Brook, who was coming off a loss. He dared to be great. No one told Kell Brook to dare. I know, and most fans, I think, understand that Khan is ducking the Kell Brook situation, but at the same time, welterweight is a stacked division, especially in 2015, 2016. So he was supposed to fight Devin Alexander. That's a 2-time champion. Could have fought him. Brandon Rios was down to fight you, former champion. Diego Chavez, former champion, gave Keith Thurman a tough fight. I wouldn't have minded to see those. Although Jesse Vargas, who's really a contender, but he was a champion. He beat Saddam Ali, who's a solid fighter. And all those dudes were down to fight you. And one reason or another, those fights didn't happen. And you continuously fought domestic rivals, and the fans were getting sick of it, But you didn't have to fight a middleweight, just fight good competition in your own division. I think that's kind of being missed in boxing, where fighters are not daring to be great in their own weight divisions. I know Mikey and maybe his team believed that Lomachenko and his team weren't serious about trying to unify, or maybe they wanted to have all the belts so they can make it happen, whatever the case may be. I don't know, because I don't think Top Rank really wanted to have Lomachenko fight Rigondeaux, and and really the diehard boxing fans really pushed that fight, and it happened. I think even Lomachenko talked about that. Rigo's a great fighter, but he's a great fighter in his own division. Like I said a little bit earlier, Mikey is a great fighter. He's actually one of my favorite current fighters of this generation. Him, Earl, Terrence Crawford. Big fans of all these guys. But I do believe that you should take care of business. And I've said this in my couple of videos ago, that I do believe in taking care of business in your current division first and divisions beforehand. Back then, they didn't have 130, 140, 154. It was just featherweight, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight. They might have had light heavy and then heavyweight. That's it. those subdivisions weren't around back then. So when Roberto Duran dared to be great, it made sense. Why? He conquered featherweight, then he conquered lightweight. So the next logical move, go to welterweight. And not only that, but he won the psychological battle versus Ray Leonard before they even fought. I think Ray Leonard was like my age when he fought Roberto Duran the first time around. He was like 24, 25. So, Shane Mosley, when he moved up and dared to be great, he conquered 135. No one could take his punch at 135. And then I think he had 2 fights at 147 before he fought Oscar. So, Andre Ward, he conquered 168. Then he had 2 tune-ups and fought the top light heavyweight guy. So when fighters dare to be great, they handle their business in the divisions beforehand first. So salute to Mikey if he's able to pull it off. But I just think when you have kind of unfinished business in other divisions, and even if you do conquer your division and dare to be great, it may not work out for you. Marquez, he was the best lightweight in the world when he beat Baby Blue Diaz, but and Floyd was coming off a similar layoff to Keith Thurman, but he came back and smoked Marquez. Marquez is one of my favorites growing up, but he lost every round. He got outboxed handedly. Even though I respect the move totally, I think Mikey will be competitive. I don't see it as a one-sided beatdown for either guy, really. If that does happen, damn. If it becomes a one-sided beating, but I don't see it that way. I think when you're dealing with pound-for-pound talents like Mikey Garcia and Earl Spence Jr., I expect a competitive fight. However, after saying all that, I do think Earl Spence will be the winner. I've gone back and forth when it'll end. If Earl wasn't such a body puncher, I would pick Earl to win by decision. But I think the body work, the pressure, the steady workman style that Earl has, he throws good combinations, but he's always placing his shots. You know what I'm saying? So he's not like a combination puncher like Canelo or Jorge Linares or Broner in the smaller divisions. He's more of a placement puncher where he places his shots well, which I would argue is maybe more dangerous, just because those punches are more purposeful. Whereas combination punching may be more dazzling to the eye, but sometimes they might end up being slappy, whereas a puncher with good placement can just hit you with a sharp shot and it'll hurt like hell. So, but breaking down the styles, they're both very good fighters. Obviously, I've said that. Mikey, he's a phenomenal boxer, puncher, counter puncher. I think actually that 2-year battle with Top Rank actually might have been a blessing in disguise, because Mikey, when he first got in the game, was really more of a counter puncher. And I think over time he's learned to be more aggressive, but still stay true to his fundamentals. I think Mikey's feet is probably one of the reasons why he's a phenomenal counter puncher, because he's in the right position to counter. So I don't know if he has the timing of Danny Garcia per se, or the reflexes of Floyd, or the speed of Sweet Pea Whitaker, but I think because he's always at the right place at the right time, he's going to be able to counter you because of that, because he has great feet. I can make an argument that this fight, especially early on, could be a battle of just footwork. Who's going to win the footwork battle? But Mikey is a phenomenal counterpuncher. He can box. Him and Earl Spence both have underrated jabs. Mikey has a strong 1-2, phenomenal left hook. I think his power will be respectable. Um, when you fight top level opponents, you're not always going to get knockouts. So I know some people are worried that Mikey he didn't knock out Broner, but Broner might have get knocked out had he been less gun shy. If he actually went for it, he might have got knocked out. The more aggressive you are, the more likely you are to get countered. So the fact that Broner was so gun shy, that might have been one of the reasons why he didn't get knocked out. So it kind of depends on how aggressive you get. But Robert Easter was more game than Broner, and he got dropped. Same thing. Lepinets, he was more game. He's naturally bigger than both Broner and Broner and Easter. And the first 6 rounds he was really competitive, but he still got dropped. So, yes, you want to be aggressive, but you still got to be smart about it. Because you are dealing with an elite counterpuncher. I think that's probably the main reason why Mikey is fighting Earl Spence over fighting Terrence Crawford, because Terrence Crawford was undisputed at 140, so why not dare to be great against him? Especially since you two fought in the amateurs, so you have history. But obviously, or not obviously, but I think because Earl Spence has more of an aggressive style, and the perception of Earl Spence, at least amongst a lot of fans, is that he's this kind of Terminator, like black Triple G type of style. Gave Mikey, I guess, more confidence to take on that challenge rather than take on the Terrence Crawford challenge. So, because like I said earlier, Mikey's naturally a counterpuncher, so Earl, because he's also naturally more aggressive, that gives him more openings to take advantage of, rather than facing a guy like Crawford, who's more of an all-around boxer, so more of a tricky puzzle. So I think that's kind of the main reason why Mikey's taking the Earl Spence greatness route rather than taking on the Terrence Crawford greatness route. And I think both fights would be competitive. I think both would be good. I think stylistically, this one's probably the better fight. But we'll have to see. I think Mikey's best range in this fight is probably the mid-range, like I said, because of his feet, because of the positioning, the leverage that he'll have in the mid-range. Even though Mikey is a good outside fighter, I think Earl Spence is also a very good outside fighter. He's phenomenal at cutting the ring off. Both fighters are actually really good at cutting the ring off. But Earl Spence has a very underrated jab. I don't know why no one ever talks about his jab, but people talk about the Charlo's jab and Triple G's jab, Kovalev's jab, but Earl Spence has a really good jab too. Wow, McGregor got arrested in Miami. I just got a notification. But getting back to the fight, Earl has a very underrated jab. He's an offensive fighter who understands the importance of distance. He also has very good feet. So, again, I think the footwork battle is going to be key in this fight, especially early in also with, Mikey establishing that he can hurt Earl, or at least make him respect him. I think that's going to be more important probably early. Make sure that Earl Spence does respect your power, because if he doesn't, then it could very well be, Chris Algieri Part 2 or Bundu Part 2, Peterson Part 2. You got to make him respect your power, because if he doesn't, I don't see how the fight goes very long, especially since Mikey is naturally the smaller guy. Even if he was to fight off the back foot versus Earl, I don't think long-term that's a great strategy, just because Earl's very good at, 1, cutting the ring off, like I said, 2, at picking his shots, so if he can cut the ring off on you and still pick his shots, kind of like what Lepinets was doing effectively earlier, I don't see where Mikey has the advantage. I don't think he has the advantage. Even though he's a good outside range fighter, I don't think he's better on the outside, especially against a tall fighter for that division who knows how to use his range. Errol Spence has long arms for a welterweight. He's got a 72-inch reach. Not to mention he's the better inside fighter as the bigger and taller man as well, and he knows how to get to your body. So he's at least skill-wise equal to you on the outside range, but he's naturally taller and longer. So I think that advantage is going to go towards Earl. Earl's the better inside fighter as the bigger, taller man. Because Mikey's not an inside fighter. He never wants to engage on the inside tug of warfare. When Robert Easter tried to get on the body, Mikey quickly tried to get out of that heat. When Salido was getting to Mikey's body, especially, like I said, those mid-rounds, the fight got a little bit more interesting. Even though Salido got knocked down 4 times, those mid-rounds, he was starting to come on until Mikey got his nose broke. So, the fact that Mikey's most competitive fights are against fighters who put on adequate pressure on Mikey. Lepinet's, more of a technical boxer. Salido, more of a cagey, rugged veteran. But both of them, when they put on pressure, they had notable success. Errol Spence, he's more experienced than Lepinet's. He's bigger than all of them. He's more technically sound than Salido. And the fact that, Mikey at times kind of waits for the perfect shot rather than sometimes, he's not like Rigondeaux to that effect or Lara where it has to be absolutely perfect, but he is somewhat meticulous with his shots. And I think long term with a fighter who puts on very good pressure, goes to the body with power, naturally bigger, places his shots. It's not just the size. I think stylistically, it's not a good fight for Mikey Garcia. So, salute to Mikey for taking on the fight, but, stylistically, I just can't see it. It's not even just the size. I think it's the style matchup with the size. A lot of people think Earl Spence is this, just Terminator, Tito Trinidad style, but, Earl Spence is a good boxer, and if the fight does turn into more of a phone booth in pocket type of fight, not that Mikey can't have success, but long term, I don't think it's in Mikey or Team Mikey's best interest for that type of fight. I think that that's just not good. I think the first 2 rounds will be very much like a chess match, battle for positioning, maybe even a jab contest a little bit early. I think rounds 3 and 4, you'll both see him start to try to put more things together, start seeing a little bit of different wrinkles. Mikey said, he's got something for Spence. Spence said he's got something for Mikey. So, maybe we might see a little bit more of that amateur background that Earl Spence is talking about. We might see something a little bit different from Mikey. Mikey might try to push Earl Spence back, which I think he should do. The more Earl Spence is on the front foot, or if it's in the middle of the fight, or middle of the ring, I think Mikey can have success if the fight's in the middle of the ring, but I don't know if it can go 12 rounds in his favor if it's, in the middle of the ring. Because I think long term that favors the bigger guy who's the better body puncher. And if Mikey fights off the back foot long terms of the fight, I really don't see that's a good style for him long term anyway. So I think Mikey has to kind of mix it up a lot more. I mean, that's the thing. When you're the smaller guy, you have to do a little bit more for less, right? When you're the bigger guy, you can take more chances. So, we'll see what happens on the fight night. But, it's a really good fight, man. Battle of positioning, battle of the jabs. Mikey has a phenomenal straight right. So he's definitely going to have to make that happen. Earl Spence has a good straight left, right hook, obviously good body puncher. Mikey is a very good left hook, good check left hook. Doesn't really go to the body much. Facing the bigger guy moving up, you're going to need a body work game. Problem is, like a lot of smaller fighters, if he's in the pocket too long with a good body puncher, that could be long-term disastrous. So, we saw that when it happened with Lara versus Hurd. Well, pretty much any boxer that fought Jared Hurd, but, I think it's tough, man, because it's like Mikey has to do so much. It has to fall almost perfectly right for Mikey, and some would say Mikey's more skilled, but I don't think he's the more skilled guy. I think they're pretty skill-wise evenly matched. So what's the, what other effects could take place? Obviously the size, It's not just will Mikey have respectable power for Earl to respect, but can he take the durability? Will he be durable enough against a big puncher with pressure, who can place his shots, good, puts really good combinations together. I mean, it's like a steady workman in Earl Spence. He's busy, but he's calculative. And you got Mikey, who's a good counterpuncher. So it's like the steady workman versus the counterpuncher. So busy fighters have always given counterpunchers issues, but you got one that's kind of more technical about it. I think that's going to be a problem, especially when he's bigger, more athletic. Mikey says he's faster. I don't think he's faster. I think he can beat guys to the punches because he's got better positioning for that. So if you're already there, yes, you're going to be able to hit him, but I don't think he has better hand speed than Earl Spence. I don't think he's going to be stronger than Earl Spence. Not saying he's weak or not fast, but I don't think those are Mikey's strong suit in this fight. So, it's a good fight, but it's going to be a tough one. I'll probably say Earl Spence, some type of stoppage, round 8. Yeah, I've been thinking round 8. It's funny because the Salido fight was stopped in round 8 too. So, and didn't Roberto Duran quit versus Ray Leonard in round 8 too? So, round 8 might be round 8 might have some. Lamont Peterson got stopped right before round 8. In the first Ray Leonard Duran fight, Ray Leonard started to come back in the 8th round. Shane Mosley started to take over in the 8th round. Eighth round might have some type of importance. I know it's kind of just random stuff and whatnot, but you never know. I think round 8, if you guys are gamblers or whatever, you might want to go round 8 for something, whether it's stoppage or I don't know, technical decision. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens, man. It's a good fight. Fox pay-per-view, they've done a good job of promoting the fight. I don't know if you guys have seen the Camp Life series they've been doing on Fox. It's not too bad, it's I'll give it this to HBO. Their 24/7s, especially when they first came out, was lit. But Fox is not bad, dive into the fighters' lifestyle and their families and stuff like that. So, it's cool. If you're a diehard fan, you kind of already know Mikey and Earl's story. So, I think it's really more for casuals kind of to play catch-up than anything else. I don't think it's the greatest card. I think it's got David Benavidez on the undercard, so that'll be nice. See how he bounced back. But the fight is mostly about the main event, Earl versus Mikey. Good fight. Whoever wins, definitely get my props. Both already got my respect. Mikey, you got what you asked for, so it's happening. If Mikey wins, he's got to be pound for pound the best fighter. Right now, at the moment, I have Terrence Crawford number 1, but I don't like pound for pound lists in general. TC would be my number one. But if Mikey does pull this off, I have to give Mikey that accomplishment, you know. And if Earl beats Mikey, I give Earl Spence credit, man. You know, he didn't call out Mikey. The other top PBC welterweights haven't seen any real initiative in making it happen or help making it happen. So, you know, kind of just like whoever's left. And that's, you know, Earl's doing his thing. If he's able to take care of business, hey, salute to him. He did what he was supposed to do. You know, I'll give him credit. He beat a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter who's in his prime. Same thing with Mikey. If you beat him, you beat the guy everyone thought could be the next, you know, Ray Leonard or whatever. So it's going to be a good fight, man. I think it's going to be a fun fight. Definitely competitive. First 5 rounds, very back and forth-ish. I think it'll be. Wouldn't be shocked if the first 5-6 rounds were even on the scorecards. But I think the middle rounds is where the fight will be. Whoever takes over, I think it'll happen in the second half of the fight. So if it's in Earl Spence's favor, probably be a stoppage. If it's Mikey's favor, I think it'll really get interesting, because we'll see how desperate Earl gets. And, you know, we've seen Earl battle tested, you know, because he was losing early to Kell Brook, and around the 6th round is when he turned up the intensity and, you know, turned into the Earl Spence show. Mikey hasn't really had a fight like that where he was losing and then he came back. I would say Lepinets was probably the closest, because they were about even, and then he took over after the knockdown. But we'll see. You know, we'll see what the type of grit Mikey Garcia shows. Mikey's really in a kind of a no-lose scenario. You know, you get heavy exposure, financial gain, legacy boost. Earl Spence, big exposure, but it's also big potential too, because if you beat Mikey, especially in the fashion that most think you will do it, then you know, he could be the next pay-per-view star, or at least he'll have the potential to do so. You know, he's in the right division. You know, he's got the names he needs. You know, we'll see what happens. Sean Porter didn't look so great in his last fight. Neither did Keith Thurman. They might end up fighting each other. You know, I'd rather see Sean fight Earl and let Keith get the comeback route, but who knows? We'll see what happens. But, you know, both are daring to be great in my eyes. So it's a great fight. Let me know who you guys think will win. Let me know how you think it'll go down. We'll definitely do a post-fight after the fight. You know, I can't wait to see the reactions. You know, whoever wins. You know, or controversy or something. You know, so we'll see what happens. You know, salute to Mikey. We'll see if he can be the Roberto Duran, Shane Mosley of the story, or will he be, you know, like a lot of the other Dare to Be Great fighters. They tried, but ultimately just, you know, too much. So we'll see what happens. Y'all have a good one. Take it easy. Stay tuned. And I'm out.